Good morning, Austin. Welcome to the welcome to the Atheist Experience.
See what happens when I'm not in the controller?
That's very true. Well, I think you did okay.
Yeah,
you made it all right.
You
got all the titles up. Thank you, Ray, and thank you, Andy, for the music this morning. Robert Johnson. Can't do wrong with old Robert Johnson.
You just play the whole song.
Well, oh well. No, we have to talk. That's very important.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Atheist Experience, folks. This show is brought to you by the Atheist Community of Austin, a non-profit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We are live March 26th, 2000 CE, or 2000 for the benefit of Ray and folks like him. I am your host for this morning's show, Martin Wagner. I am ordinarily the co-host, but Jeff D is out of town this weekend, so I am hosting the show this morning, and Vic Farrow, who was actually, regular viewers of this show will remember, was Jeff's co-host for the month of January and February of this year, but you decided that you enjoyed...
I like playing with the buttons.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to do the joke about playing with the buttons and the knobs. But,
thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah, but was very gracious enough, though, to come out of the hidey hole over there and do the Ed McMahon thing for me this morning, so thank you very much, Vic. Just our quick morning announcements. The ACA has weekly meetings, Sunday mornings at the Hot Jumbo Bagel Shop, 307 West 5th Street at 10:30 a.m. That's directly after this broadcast. And that's on 5th Street between Guadalupe and Lavaca. And we have those meetings every Sunday, except for the first Sunday of each month when we have our lecture series at 11 a.m. at Furr's Cafeteria at North Cross Mall. Our next lecture will take place on Sunday, April 2nd. And we will be hearing from Howard Thompson, who is the editor of the Texas Atheist newsletter, and I'm sure we'll be speaking on atheists getting politically active in this election year, since that is his personal passion. ACA board meetings take place at noon, right after our regular meeting on the second Sunday of every month. These meetings are open to all ACA members, but you can only vote if you're on the board of directors. The next board meeting will be taking place on April 9th. The Godless Gamers, our little spin-off group, meets every Monday night at the home of Vic Farrow. We had been doing it on Wednesday nights, but that proved to be a bit of too many schedule conflicts for folks. So on Monday, we switched it to Monday, and that has actually swelled our ranks yet again. So it's a lot of fun.
I leave Wednesday night open for mountain biking, so
yeah, there you go. Cool. And to bang yourself up some more. Our upcoming events, the ACA is sponsoring a blood drive. Our next blood drive is Saturday, April 29th at 10 a.m., the Regional Blood Center on North Lamar. So, yeah, that's a good thing. Give up a little of the old vino and, save a life. Do that. For more information, you may call our voicemail at 371-2911, or you can visit our website at www.atheist-community.org. This program can also be seen on the internet. You can set your browser to spring.net. They have a real video streaming thing, as a matter of fact, and coincidentally enough, we have on line one, Paul, from on the web. So we're going to talk to him right here at the beginning of the show. Paul? Good morning, Paul. Wait, I don't think I'm new at this, folks, so.
You got him.
Paul? Good morning.
Is he not there?
Is he not there? I don't think we're not getting him on line one, unfortunately. Sorry, Paul, hang on. Hold on. Okay. Paul, just hang on. We're having, as usual, our
phone difficulties.
Our patented ACA phone difficulties this morning. But anyway, we will try to get to Paul. But first, let's go over to Vic for this morning's news. Good morning, Vic.
For this morning's news.
Yeah. What is happening in the world, Vic?
All kinds of stuff.
All right.
But I pulled off some stuff from Internet Infidels last night at about 9, so it's all done in a hurry.
Right.
But one of the stories I followed, like I did when I was the co-host, was the near Earth Asteroid Rendezvous Spacecraft, which has been renamed after Gene Shoemaker, who died last year.
Oh, okay. And, was he one of the Shoemaker-Levy?
Shoemaker-Levy, yes.
Oh, okay.
And he was one that discovered the Shoemaker-Levy 9, which is the one that smashed into Jupiter.
Right.
And they renamed the near spacecraft. It's now called Near Shoemaker. Oh. But after scarcely a month in orbit around Eros, NASA's Near-Earth Asteroid Rendezvous spacecraft is astounding scientists with more detailed views of geological features and with technical scientific accomplishments. NEAR team members have found evidence of geological phenomenon that could have originated on a much larger parent body from which Eros was derived. In their search to decipher the mysteries of Eros, they have obtained the first ever laser range return from an asteroid and the first ever X-ray detection of an asteroid. High-resolution images are surprising scientists by the abundance of ridges, chains of craters, and boulders.
Wow.
So there's all kinds of stuff all over the little asteroid, and I won't go into too much detail on it because that's my pet project.
But they're saying that they have discovered geological features from the planet that they originally think
it could have been
a planetoid, a larger body that they would think Eros originated from.
It could have split off from an impact, and we got Paul back. So let's break
Fascinating.
some news.
All right, we're going to try to get Paul back on line 1. Thanks for persevering with us, Paul. And you're on the air, Paul? Well,
no, you're not.
Okay, I must be not doing this properly. Hold down the air button, hold down 1, release. Paul? Good morning.
Morning, can you hear me?
Oh, now we got you. Hi, Paul, how are you?
All right, good. The webcast is going on this morning. The audio portion sounds superb.
Good.
We're having problems with our video this morning.
Okay.
So folks won't be able to see you right now until I get this video problem solved, but they'll be able to hear it anyway.
All right, well, we appreciate you letting you know.
More.
We'll just talk more.
A still picture of you guys, because you guys don't move around a whole lot anyway, do you?
Right.
That's fine. Just put our handsome mugs up there, and that should be enough. Well, for the benefit then of folks watching or listening to the webcast on spring.net, the phone number to call in is area code 512-472-2255. If you're watching at home on TV, you can let your friends, loved ones, associates in Austin or out of Austin, let them know that they can catch us on spring.net. And if you want to call the show and you're out of town, you're calling long distance, please let our phone screener know. We will get you on the air right away.
One comment on that.
Yes.
There's a new really killer, absolutely cool application called dialpad.com that they can use to call you without incurring any long distance charges. And I'm putting that up on my website right now, so
okay,
they'll be able to click on that and call you without having long distance charges.
Oh, that's terrific.
Right.
Well, there you go,
through
folks.
the computer.
Okay. And once again, that number's 512-472-2255. Well, we think, we appreciate all the work you're doing for us there on spring.net, Paul.
Oh, it's a lot of fun, and I enjoy doing it. I just wish I didn't have these little glitches every now and then.
Well, it's new technology. I mean, you can hear about all the problems they had with that Stephen King story.
Oh yeah.
And nobody could download that thing. So.
Well, at least your audio's getting out there okay today.
Well, that's great. That's really exciting to hear. Spreading the word, as it were.
And with Dialpad, though, they won't have to worry about those long distance charges.
Right. Now, exactly how does Dialpad work? What sort of do you need? Is it just an application?
A sound card.
Okay.
Which if they're listening to the show, they have a sound card, but they also need a microphone.
Okay.
And what they do is they just open www.dialpad.com and they punch in the phone number in their browser, and then it dials the number, and then they're talking. It's really very simple.
Over their computer's mic.
Right.
Wow. And is that is it both PC and Mac compatible?
I don't know about Mac compatible, but it works great on a PC. I haven't tried it on a Mac.
Okay. Well, these developers got to get on the ball with the Mac.
It's Java and browser based, so it may work on a Mac, but I'd just be guessing if I said that.
And good, I assume, for both IE and Netscape.
Oh yeah.
Terrific. Well, that's exciting.
All right.
Well, we hope we hear from some people, and somebody might call in and let us know exactly how that's working out.
All right, great.
Well, thanks for calling, Paul.
Hey, thanks a lot.
And we hope to talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye. Well, that's just technology marches on, doesn't it? Let's see. I have a few things that I would like to say about last week's program. We had last week was our vernal equinox special. We have about 4 times a year, with the ringing in of each season. We do a thing where we just invite the group as a whole, just whoever wants to come down to the studio. Can do so. And we actually set chairs up here. If you watched last week, we set chairs up, and we have sort of it's kind of a studio audience, but actually kind of just everyone gets to be a guest who wants to be. And so last week we did that and had a pretty decent turnout, unlike this morning when we seem to be even more shorthanded than we usually are, but we had to...
Battered up.
Well, let's see. You're gone. Yeah, everyone's either gone, sick. You're banged up from a bike accident. You know,
but I'm here.
Yeah, and so that's made it. So
all I have to do is sit down. My legs don't hurt so much when I'm doing that.
yeah, it's well, just on a gray overcast morning. This is not so surprising. But last week's show, you know, it was pretty interesting, and we had a call that I would like to perhaps discuss in a little more detail, mainly because I didn't get to really say 2 words during the show because it got so boisterous. A caller called pertaining to the school prayer issue, and particularly the football game prayer issue, about which, just another quick announcement before I go into discussing that in general, has to do with the school in Santa Fe, where the one student, you know, got to recite over the PA system at the football stadium a Christian prayer. And actually Jeff D. and Manda went up and, you know, there was a small protest. It made headlines.
Right.
Well, Wednesday, the Supreme Court is hearing arguments about that.
Yeah, Wednesday the 29th.
And so on Wednesday the 29th of this week, and pertaining to that, there is a rally, the Respect Our Constitution rally. And I want to thank Rodney, by the way, for sending me a packet of stuff in the mail about it. I just want to acknowledge that. Yeah, the Respect Our Constitution rally will be Wednesday, I believe, 2 p.m. at the 2, I think, at the state capitol. I know that
3.
Okay, 2 or 3.
Could be 2 or 3.
Yeah, I know some people work conflicts and schedules will prevent them from being able to be part of that, but that is happening this Wednesday, and it is directly related to the football game student-led prayer issue. Anyway, but we had a Christian call last week's show pertaining to this. Now, we like to hear from Christians. We like to hear from all people, atheists and Christians alike. And I personally really kind of regret it when a Christian calls and the conversation just sort of degenerates into a shouting match, because, you know, I don't really think that's what we're here for, and that's not what we want. Unfortunately, some people, you know, sometimes we will get a Christian calling and they will begin to sort of just go on a tear and not allow any of us to respond to what they're saying. And so that can be kind of difficult. Sometimes they just won't allow the conversation to remain civil. And, you know, I can understand sometimes Jeff really kind of gets a little put out with some of these people. And I do too.
Jeff
understandably.
expresses a direct point.
Yeah. and I can understand why he would get put out with these people. You know, it's because when they become belligerent and sarcastic. Yeah. And but as a result, everyone actually on last week's little studio audience / guest group just was putting in grabbing the mic and putting in their 2 cents to this guy, and it all just kind of became unglued. And I didn't get a chance to really say much to the guy at all, which is why I'm going to take today's opportunity
to right ahead.
Respond. Yeah, and Jeff isn't here to shut me up, so that's. Okay. We love Jeff. He's a heck of a host, and I'm very happy to be filling in his shoes. I hope I get to do a good job. The caller kind of took a sarcastic attitude right from the very beginning of his call.
Right.
Along the lines of, well, oh, how dare anyone in a country like ours take a vote? You know, gee, what's our country coming to? The idea was at the Santa Fe school, what happened, it was the students voted, and it was actually a rather modest percentage of the student body who actually participated in the vote. But
it was a very minuscule participation.
Yeah, but you know, the upshot of it all was that they did vote to allow this prayer, and this caller thought, oh, you know, why then is there any discussion if the students took a vote? Well, here's the point that I think that particular caller was missing, and that is that, okay, yes, we are a democratic nation. We do have elections. We vote on things. Right, but just because we vote on some things doesn't mean doesn't mean everything is open to a vote. I mean, yes,
we are a constitutional republic.
Yes,
and the Constitution cannot be voted out. You can't just say, well, I don't agree with this portion of the Constitution, so we'll just have a little vote amongst our little people and we'll ignore it.
Yeah, I mean, whatever the letter, if the letter of the law is clear about something, that's the letter of the law. I mean, and when we have our elections, they are set times, set years, and they are about specific issues.
As prescribed in the Constitution.
Yeah, and if a House resolution is brought forward to be voted on, that's how you vote. You know, but as you said, the Constitution on the matter of government sponsorship of religion is perfectly
Absolutely
clear. And just because a group of students want to get together and take a show of hands, the Constitution does not temporarily become null and void.
The problem with the school prayers over the football games is that it's a select denomination of a particular religion that is given a captive audience. The people are there for a football game, and then while they have them as a captive audience, you start praying your particular version of religion on them. Now you've infringed upon their rights to be free of religion if they so choose.
Right.
Or if they're of a different denomination or of a different religion altogether, you've gone into preaching your particular religion to them. They may not want to hear it.
Yeah, and the thing that just really gets me about the whole issue is the way in which the particular Christians who want this to happen, and there are a lot of Christians out there, particularly mainstream Christians, who completely support separation of church and state, and they understand the purpose of it and the benefits of it and the properness of it. But the particular Christians who want this to go on, they have a very arrogant attitude of, well, if you don't like it, go buy a hot dog or something, or just if you don't like it, you can do something. That isn't how our country operates.
The same thing applies in classrooms, where if you have a prayer where if some student doesn't want to hear that, well, he has to be put out of the classroom. Well, he has as much right to be in that classroom as the theist student.
Right.
And putting him out is unfair to him in order to accommodate some other religion.
Well, what it does is
it
stigmatizes him. It
makes
stigmatizes him. It is a way that student is forced to be ostracized.
And I can tell you from experience, having been a kid who was an atheist, stigmatism is quite pronounced.
I read something very recently on a news report about how there was in some state, as there are in many states during this election year, some battle over prayer in school and whether to have it or not. And there was either an atheist or a non-religious student in a particular school, I don't recall the city or the state, not wanting to pray and wanting to, and having to step out of the class when the prayer was spoken. And as a result, he is now subject to all sorts of verbal and sometimes physical intimidation from his fellow students.
Exactly.
They're calling him Satan worshiper.
Yeah, all the names that they always call all atheists. They have this big list of names that were...
And here's a kid where, if religion were not put into the mix at all, he would be just one of the peers. He would be a fellow student there, like all the rest of them, just getting an education.
Right.
But now he has been put in a situation that he should not have to be put in, because religion has been introduced into an environment that it simply does not belong in the public schools that is funded by taxpayer money.
Right.
Okay. Now, the way the Establishment Clause reads is, the government will not either respect an establishment of religion, which means no government/taxpayer support of one particular sectarian set of beliefs over another, or it will not prevent the exercise of religion, which means that in your own home, in your own church, in your own synagogue, in your own temple,
out on the street,
you can do what you want out on the street.
And students in school have remember they seem to forget that one passage in their own Bible where it says to pray in their closets.
Yes, Jesus himself.
It's not about allowing a student who's theistic to have his moment of prayer or whatever. It's about displaying their religion.
Although, you know what, that is one of the Bible's many contradictions, because Jesus himself in the Gospels says, go into your closet and pray silently. However, St. Paul, in one of his later epistles, says, raise your hands to the heavens and shout and sing triumphantly.
But there's no contradictions anywhere in the Bible.
Slap this man.
We have a telephone call.
We have a telephone call from Steve, let's see. Let's take this and see what's going on in the morning. Hello, Steve?
Yeah, good morning.
You're on the air. How are you doing today?
All right.
What can we do for you?
Well, I just have a comment for you.
Yes, sir.
I have no problem with your guys' beliefs, or disbeliefs, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But I just, I mess around on the chat room, stuff like that, and I'm a Christian, and I went through my atheistic period, and then when I was younger and all that.
Which means you didn't go to church.
No, it just means I didn't believe. But you're always talking. I've kind of surfed through your show a couple of times, and you're always talking about the hatred from the Christians. But I've experienced nothing but hatred from atheists for Christians, not Buddhists, not Muslims, not Wiccans, just Christians. So I think it's really hypocritical to say that the Christians or religious people I'm not overly religious, but I do believe, are the ones putting the hate out, because that's all I get from atheists is hate.
Well, you know, when I understand where you're coming from, and I try to reiterate, and I tried to say it earlier on the program, it is not, first off, it is not all Christians whom we do criticize when we criticize Christians. There are the majority of Christians, what I refer to as mainstream Christians, are not the ones out there promulgating, you know, the anti-gay rhetoric, the anti-feminist rhetoric, what have you. It is a very small and vocal but select group of either fundamentalist leaders, ministers, and particular people. I do understand that there are a bunch of atheists out there who do express a great deal of antagonism and animosity towards Christians and the Christian belief system and the way in which Christianity is practiced. I would say, though, that it is a response to the fact that we do live in a predominantly Christian culture, and atheists feel marginalized. You know, and I have my reactions when I tell people that I don't believe in God. Simply telling them that I don't believe in a God tends to range anywhere from just incredulity to just outright shock and animosity. And we don't feel that, you know, simply choosing not to believe in a supernatural being or a deity should be a reason for people to get angry with you or to dislike you personally.
I agree.
So my view is the only times that I personally have ever gotten angry at Christians for doing something, like has shown I guess even what you might consider to be, you know, hatred. Although I try not to hate anyone, but sometimes I do hate the things that people do, are the times when, you know, I, you know, see the guy who runs the church, and he has the www God Hates Fags website, where he goes to the funerals of gay men, where their family and loved ones are mourning, and holds up signs saying fags burn in hell. You know, I mean, I think that, you know, I don't know that it's necessarily wrong to hate people who perform acts of bigotry. You know, and you know, if a person, my family, my mother and my father and my grandmother were all devout Christians. Many of their friends are very devoutly Christian, excuse me. They don't do anything like that, so I have no reason to have any sort of animosity towards them simply because they are Christian. It's only when Christians do things, certain select groups of Christians do things that are hateful, that I or atheists that I know come out strongly antagonistic towards that. Now, are you saying that you yourself have just experienced unmotivated hatred simply because from an atheist simply because you are? Well, there are love rings, by the way. That's
we're sending out our atheist love to you.
Sending out love. Yeah, just to let you know that we have.
On several occasions.
You have?
Oh yeah, just about every atheist I've spoken to, they are burning with hatred for Christians and the Christian faith.
Well,
and I've tried to have intelligent conversations with them, not telling them, you know, because I did not come from a religious home.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't become a Christian until I was in my early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went through, like I said, my atheistic period, and then I changed my mind and I came back to being a Christian, and I'm a Christian now. But I don't object to anyone's beliefs as long as their beliefs aren't harmful to other people.
We're with you on that.
And so I was just curious.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my brother is an atheist, and he prefers to not be called an atheist because he doesn't believe in nothing after death. He just doesn't believe in God. So he has another term for it. But basically speaking, he would be closer to your belief than he would mine.
Well, do you and he get along?
No.
Okay.
No, we don't.
I'm sorry to hear that. Vic, do you have?
I've been in 3 different. There are like 3 different atheist chat rooms in the MSN community place, and I went into them, and I was just curious. I wanted to know why they hated Christians and did not hate Muslims, did not hate Buddhists, did not hate Wiccans. They save all their animosity.
Yeah, let me tackle this one. First off, you're in a chat room. Okay, chat rooms are notoriously loaded with just plain stupid people.
Well, yeah,
and,
I realize that.
And
but, I've had some fairly intelligent conversations in certain.
Yeah, my experience with chat rooms has been, if you really want to get into this debate, try news groups. It's much more civil in most cases.
Well, there are nut jobs on the news.
There's nut jobs on news groups too, but you're taking your time a little more to write what it is you're going to say, and most of the people that I've read in the news groups are at least have two brain cells to rub together. And what you're running into though is a people problem, not really a belief versus non-belief problem. Some people just don't handle having their ideas challenged very well.
Yeah, and atheists are
just as guilty of that as anybody else.
They're fallible people, just like anyone.
And you can if they're not really equipped to take on the debate of belief versus non-belief.
Well, I wasn't even trying to debate that, because I feel that that's not an issue that I was trying to debate. I was really just trying to go for very basic things, just basically, why do you hate so much?
Right.
I have certain beliefs. I believe homosexuality is wrong, not only because it's biblically wrong, but because.
Do you believe homosexuals should be killed?
In science.
Right. Do you believe homosexuals should be killed?
No.
Okay. Well, in the Bible it says that in Leviticus 20:13 it says.
Well, you're also dealing with a culture. I mean, if we lived 2,000 years ago, we would be killing a lot of people.
True.
Sure.
We don't. And
okay.
I was just trying to pin you down, because you do say that your disapproval of homosexuality was biblically based. So I just wanted to.
No, I said not only because it's biblically based, but also because, if homosexuality were something that was normal, you would have homosexual animals, and
we have homosexuality animals all the time.
We do, but we don't.
Well, actually, that's not correct, sir. There are
bonobo chimpanzees engage in homosexual acts. Dogs engage in homosexual acts.
The bonobo chimps, they suspect might be engaging in homosexual acts. The jury is still out on that.
Well, okay.
But even if that's true, we are closer to the chimpanzee lineage than the gorilla is. So that still doesn't X out, everything else.
Well,
but regardless.
And I doubt seriously if the chimpanzees have this idea that it's homosexual. It's just
it's not. Just because your dog starts humping your leg doesn't mean he's
not really
exploring an alternative lifestyle.
Yeah,
it's not the same thing.
You have a dog with a.
But anyway, to get back to your original question. Well, first off, I have to say that I do regret the fact that you are hearing animosity from some atheists. We try not to do that on this program. As I said, our organization and the program is here to promote what we call positive atheism, which is the idea that you can live a happy, constructive, productive life without reference to the supernatural. That's what we mean by positive atheism. And so we do try to project that image. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, sometimes we do, sometimes we'll get a Christian call and the conversation will just degenerate into a shouting match, and I always regret that. But inevitably, what happens in those cases is we get a person who is, say, of a fundamentalist stripe, and they just go on a tear. They don't allow us to answer their questions as you're doing. And they start trying to sermonize to us, and it all comes falling apart. And we have had Christians call the show and just harangue us from the get-go at the top of their lungs for even being on the air. So it goes both ways. So what I think you're seeing there, as Vic pointed out, sir, is a people problem. It's regrettable. It shouldn't happen. I would disagree with an atheist who wanted to only take a confrontational, angry stance towards Christians or any religious group. And in response to your question as why Christians as opposed to Hindus, Muslims, Wiccans, what have you, well, in our particular country, in the U.S. of A. right now, the majority religion is Christianity, and the people.
That. Most atheists won't even admit that.
Yeah, so that's probably why.
This nation is founded on Judeo-Christian principle,
and whether you
are
that one,
Christian or not, it is.
Well,
our laws are taken directly from the Bible.
No. Well, no, not really. Most of our founding fathers were deists.
Deists or non-believers.
There were some
Christians.
Religion.
There were a Christian, select Christian few who were at the Constitutional Convention, and their writings project that.
And there was no prayer at the Constitutional Convention.
Benjamin Franklin brought up the idea of prayer
Twice.
before the Constitutional Convention twice, and they were both allowed to die without a vote. So it was clearly what they were trying to do.
But notwithstanding, our country is still founded on Judeo-Christian principles.
Well,
The
see,
founding fathers themselves.
no, our country was founded so that people could have an environment in which to exercise religious freedom.
Oh, yes.
And
Most-
so, but
and
not
especially,
specifically
yes.
Judeo-Christian.
But that is a Christian belief.
Not from any that I've seen
well,
practicing
then
it.
how do
No.
you, then how do you account for, you know, the 700 Club? Those are, you know, getting on the case of Wiccans and other religions and attacking them on their program.
Pat Robertson wasn't at the signing of the Constitution.
No, but Pat Robertson considers himself, you know, God's right-hand man. So
Yeah, and
it's
In fact, I have quotes from Pat Robertson's that are quite disturbing.
you know, it's
I realize, I mean, I've followed Pat Robertson for a good many years, and I don't agree with everything the man says. But, I mean, there are certain types of people I don't care to be around. I don't like Wiccans. I find them odd, and they make me uncomfortable. But should they be burned at the stake? No.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I think Wicca is kind of...
yeah. Well, you know, we don't believe in Wicca either.
Yeah, Wicca I found to be kind of silly.
But the point
if
is,
there's a Wiccan out there, my next door neighbor or so is a Wiccan, and he wants to burn his candles and chant his magic spells, let him go. I mean, if he wants to talk to me about why I don't believe in his Wiccan stuff, then we're good in that. But
okay.
Well, I guess my basic point is that as a Christian, and I'm not a Bible scholar, but I feel I know the Bible fairly well, and as a Christian, it's not my job to harass you or anyone else about their religious or non-religious beliefs. It's my job to be as good a person as I can be and be as good an example as I can be. And your religious beliefs or disbeliefs are your responsibility. And as long as your beliefs or anyone else's beliefs don't stomp on mine, it's not my place.
well, sir, we applaud you for that view, and
It's nothing that I came up with. So that's what I'm told through my beliefs.
Well,
Okay.
then I think that's an excellent way. If that's what you choose to believe, I think that's an excellent way to interpret it. I wish that there were other members of the Christian community shared that.
Well,
and at the same time, I also
Bible again.
yeah, I wish that there were. Well, no, because you see, I don't use the Bible as my reference for how to live my life, and I consider myself a moral person who tries to.
But you're saying other Christians should feel that way, and I'm saying if they
And other atheists, yeah, other atheists should be once again more.
Well, we all should be more tolerant of each other.
Exactly.
And there's one of our big things we like to say that,
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't matter that we don't agree on the same religion. It matters that we're able to communicate with each other, cooperate with each other, and live together in the same country.
All right. So I think.
And we have a line of phone calls, and we have to really.
So
keep
I
it
think
going,
that
so.
we agree with you, sir. That's where it all up to was. So thank you very much for your call, and
you.
have a great week, and we will hope to hear from you again.
All right, you have a nice day.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
And we're going next to
to
line 3 for Mark.
hang up him first.
For Peter. Okay. And
Peter.
Peter.
Yes,
Good morning.
Peter.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Fine. What can we do for you?
Oh, I don't know. I just tuned in, and this is kind of an exciting topic for me. I was brought up Christian, and I feel like it was a kind of depressing way to look at life, and it's odd that I've met a lot of people who didn't believe in it and have turned to it for like some kind of emotional support, or they said that they needed something to help them through like a hard time in their life or whatever. And I've just when I first embraced atheism, I kind of looked at it in a morbid kind of way too, or like it was depressing, or it meant that there was some kind of meaninglessness to life or whatever. But but really,
it's not that way.
Meaning and power to it that I've discovered.
It's liberating.
We're giving way too much credit to some kind of magical being for everything that's like true and good in our lives and our instincts and what we want to do.
Right. Well, the idea is that it's not necessary to have supernatural references in your life if you want to be a happy, productive individual. And I would further argue that, my opinion is that if you are a happy, productive individual to begin with, Christianity or other supernatural belief systems really don't have anything to offer you.
Right.
Because especially if you look at a lot of the things that Christianity teaches its adherents, first off, what you have you have things like the concept of sin, for example. This idea that everyone is a born sinner. Simply by virtue of being alive on this planet, you are condemned to go to a place, a little fiery lake, where little imps will poke at you with pitchforks for eternity. And the only way in which you can avoid that fate, because you're such scum, is to give yourself over to this religious belief, to belief in God and belief in Jesus, and then, and only then, can you have a happy, productive, safe life. There are a lot of problems with that.
Yeah, one of my big beefs with Christianity is to set up the straw man so that you can knock him down. Make this false problem, sin, which is not real. This is not a real concept. It's just some words.
Right.
And then pound that into somebody's head that you're a sinner, you're just low, you're scum. And then, but if you don't have to be scum. You can come over here and then offer them a fake solution to a fake problem.
Yeah, it's like a two-way thing. It's that you hate yourself, so you can turn around and hate everybody else too.
Yeah.
My father wrote a book that's been published recently on like an introduction to Christianity or something like that, and he starts off by trying to suggest that the most powerful kind of love, altruism, a selfless love that he describes that you have for the ugly or whatever, he suggests that it's meaningless if you don't have this like happy God reward in the end. Or I don't know if it's a reward that he's referring to or just a God.
Well, I think that it might be, sir.
Pie in the sky when you die.
I think that is what it is. What is at the basis of a lot of religious, particularly Christian belief system, which is if you're a part of the club and if you do believe in our God and if you do this, then you are then you get the big reward after you die. And it's interesting. So it is sort of a what's in it for me thing. So there is an innate selfishness, I think, in which I think many Christians aren't aware of, to the Christian belief system.
It's scary to think that you need this reward, and I don't even know if it's like the reward that he's referring to by suggesting that it's meaningless as much as like that nobody sees it. And it's like, well, you missed the whole point of this selfless act if you need somebody to see it.
Yeah,
you need it to be acknowledged by somebody or something, or anywhere. If you can't just feel good about it just by doing it.
It's its own reward. It should be its own reward.
The point.
It's fascinating to me how what it all does sort of boil down to in the Christian belief system is, ultimately it's all about me. It's what do I, by believing I get to go to heaven. And particularly I've seen a few like Christian television shows and documentaries about Christianity, and especially in the fundamentalist camp of Christianity, what they sell is this very, very contemporary American consumerist vision of the afterlife, in which I was watching this one film or a program in which there was like one of these Christian television shows and where they have the prayer lines, and there was someone on the phone talking to a caller and telling this caller, well, now that you've given your heart to Jesus, God has your mansion waiting for you in heaven. It's all the material wealth that you didn't get to enjoy on earth, you get after you die. So it comes down to that sort. In some instances, it does kind of come down to that level of silliness.
And it's all based on a premise that there is an afterlife, which is absolutely no evidence of.
Yeah. So basing your life and the way in which you live your life upon concepts that have little to no evidence to support them, and the idea that there is this divine being. Whose existence has never been firmly established, that you possess somewhere in your body something called a soul, which is the
detached portion of you that isn't part of you, but is stuck inside you for while your body
which have never been seen on an MRI scan or an X-ray or anything like that.
There's no measurement for a soul.
But just it's in there, just believe it. And then there is this place you go. You either go to the good place or the bad place. And so your reason for being moral, therefore, becomes fear of punishment.
And there are all these illogical things that are like pulling you away from like reality in like really negative ways. Like for instance,
well, it's a negative.
We wouldn't even be here, or that we were created like poof, by some mama.
Well, it's a negative.
Held our hand every step of the way to where we are now. And the thing is it's more amazing than that. And it's like, of course, you're going to get depressed if you just see this as just like some kind of easy happening thing, you know, that is, I mean, if you look at it like there's this magical God that is manipulating things and has been since the beginning, this is kind of a piece of crap world for some powerful magical God to create.
With the big boy with the big toys.
Failed. This is a piece of crap. But if you look at it as this chemical reaction, this fucking pure chance, fucking
right? Well, language.
If you look at it for that, then it's amazing. It's astounding. It's mind-boggling.
Well, nature has a lot of
great feet. Just blind.
Yeah.
Nobody to guide us.
Right. Well, we're with you on that. You know, you're invited, by the way, if you'd like to come out to the bagel shop this morning at 10, right after the program, 10:30. It's a Hot Jumbo Bagel Shop. It's a meeting that's open. It's an ACA meeting open to all atheists and atheist-friendly people. If you want to come out and meet some of us, it's on 5th Street.
Fifth in between Lavaca and Guadalupe.
If you want to come on out. We'd love to meet you.
Oh, I don't know. I've got
or if you can make it.
Day ahead of me.
Oh, well, that's okay. But it's an open invitation any Sunday.
All right.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we agree with you. It's not necessary to have these supernatural references for your morality and your happiness. Thank you for calling, man.
All right.
Have a good day.
All right, you too. Bye.
Yeah. It's not only is it not necessary, it doesn't really work.
Right.
Because if your reason for being moral and being good and doing good things is, I'm afraid if I'm not that way, I'll go to the bad place and burn, but maybe if I am this way, I'll get to go to the good place and be rewarded. Well, you're being good because you want a reward. You're not being good because being good is the good thing to be.
And what happens to all these people who, I mean, I hear story after story. I was in prison and I used to beat people to death, and then one day I found God and I was forgiven. Everything was okay. Well, I don't know.
Well, yeah, there's still a...
Yeah.
Well,
and even if he messes up and goes and beats somebody to death again, he can still come back and say, well, you know, forgive me again. I'm just this weak little human.
Right. Although it does now that, but then you have Christians who now also believe in different ways in which you achieve this salvation.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, fundamentalists believe more or less strictly only in salvation by faith.
Yeah.
Which means just believe in all your heart and that gets you saved. They don't tend to believe in salvation by works.
Right.
Which is by virtue of being a good person, you get to go to heaven or the good part. But regardless of the fact, what it boils down to is, well, I'll give you my personal example, which is when I was in college, I humored someone that I know by going to one of these kind of non-denominational, services, like you occasionally see on Trinity or some of the Christian channels. And for me, it was just, for the most part, this really kind of bizarre, fascinating, journey into another world. It was, but part of this, there was the singing, and there was they're the ones where they pray like this, and they have their and some of them do the babbling, which they think they're talking in tongues, but they're just kind of in a trance.
Just babbling.
They're babbling. Yeah.
Yes.
But what stuck out to me mostly was they had, I think at some point in the service, they had a thing where they had some people come up and give their personal testimonies of, their life with God and Jesus and believing all that. And one fellow, they all tended to take the same track, but the one that sticks out to me that I think is still pretty representative of most of them was this guy got up and he started telling this sad story about how, he used to be a drunk and he used to come home drunk every night and he would beat up his wife and he'd beat up his kids and he would just be depressed and alcohol, and he had a lot of absenteeism from his job. He wouldn't show up to work on time. He lost his job. But then he found Jesus, and it all got okay after that.
Right.
And I just thought to myself, not only do I not need religion to tell me that it's wrong to be an alcoholic wife beater, I don't think that I particularly want to hang out with the kinds of people who need religion to teach them it's wrong to be an alcoholic wife beater.
Right.
So
he can't figure it out for himself.
It's not rocket science.
Missing there.
The morality is not rooted in some divine being arbitrarily snapping his fingers and saying this is the good thing to do and this is the bad thing to do. If you do the good thing, I reward you. If you do the bad thing, it's barbecue time.
Altruism.
Morality is based upon the fact that we are a social species,
and we survived that way because we were able to cooperate with one another. We were able to survive and become the humans we are today.
Yeah, there are social behaviors that contribute to the success of society.
The human race.
And there are social behaviors that do not contribute to the success of a society, like murder, like robbery, like various criminal acts. And so that is why those things are considered immoral or wrong, because they damage the body politic. They don't
Right.
work. We have more callers
We
to
are
take,
being
so let's
pressed to call.
Yeah.
Go to the callers.
All right, so we will do it now. Thank you for waiting, callers, but we just had to finish our spiel. We're going to Mark now. Mark,
Good morning.
you're live.
Morning, Mark.
Hey, Mark Loewe.
Yeah,
How are you doing, sir?
pretty well.
Oh. What can we do for you this morning?
Well, I was listening to the first caller who stated that our country was founded on Judeo-Christian beliefs.
Yes.
That's a common belief among Christians.
Yes.
And I'd like to point out that if you want convincing evidence that the caller is blatantly wrong, you can refer not only to the Constitution's First Amendment, but also to Articles 6 and 2 of the original Constitution.
Okay.
And among other things, Article 6 reads, and I'll paraphrase a little bit here.
Yeah, and speak up a bit, Mark.
I'll paraphrase a little bit here.
Okay.
It says, this Constitution, ... shall be the supreme law of the land,
You're feeding.
Okay.
and further, that basically all judges and legislators and the executive shall be sworn to support this Constitution, but no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification for
Right.
any office or public trust under the United States.
And
Right.
and it's worth pointing out, Mark, that there are right now a lot of states in the U.S. that violate that constitutional principle. There are a lot. Is Texas one of them? Where if you do not,
doesn't have the requirement of one, but it does have one.
yeah, there are states in which atheists
Yeah, I
cannot
believe,
run for public office.
yeah, I believe North Carolina would be one of those.
Well, yeah, but there's.
Run for office, they can't.
They can't hold
They
office.
can't
'cause
hold. They
have
can
to
run.
take
They
the God
can't.
oath.
You can't hold office. Now, and there are actually many states like that, and
Yeah,
that is a
there's a few.
direct violation of that, provision in the Constitution.
And they'll immediately say, well, that's the states' rights. Well, I'm sorry, but the 14th Amendment applies the federal Constitution to the states, and so the state does not have the right to violate the federal Constitution.
I think what you're seeing there, Mark, is just it's a presupposition on the part of those Christians that anything good and right and proper simply comes from their God. To them, that's a given concept. So when they say that this nation is founded on Judeo-Christian principles, it's based upon a belief that they have that anything that's good for society just comes from that. It comes from the God that they believe in. And as we just stated, morality is something that human culture has developed over time, and it is a response to how cultures can thrive and survive, and what makes them thrive and survive as opposed to what makes them fail and collapse wholeheartedly upon themselves. So that's why they think that. Anyway, anything else?
Yeah, I'd like to mention that Article 2 of the Constitution, which talks about the powers of Congress, and there are only very few powers of Congress listed in Article 2. Well, one of them is that Congress shall have the power to promote the progress of science and useful arts,
Right.
which to me indicates that is convincing evidence that the framers emphasized beliefs in the scientific study of nature and not of God.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and interesting you brought that particular point up, because I have an article here you might be interested in. It came from off the news where I got it. That's about scientific illiteracy in the United States. And we have two callers. Just guys, hold on, and I'll go through this pretty quickly.
We have two.
Call by name too.
Yeah, we have
Don and Goda. I don't know what Goda.
Goda, G-O-D.
Goda, we have waiting on the line, and Don. Okay, interesting. Well,
hang on,
the
we're
two
gonna
of
get
you
to you.
just hang on, and we're going to let Vic do the news here. And Mark, we're going to let you go.
I'm going to do this one story.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
This relates to Mark Loewe.
Mark Loewe, and we'll see you at the bagel shop, Mark.
Great.
Mark Loewe has is spearheading an effort to have science and math textbooks be made out of low-cost paperbacks,
Yeah, recycled
which
paper.
could be given to students in public schools for them to keep.
Right. Not have to
And
turn them in at
then
the
they
end
went
of
to turn these. They had these great big hardbound textbooks that, after about 2 or 3 years, are outdated and thrown away. And so that would be a massive improvement. in
I think
science.
that's a tremendous idea of Mark's.
And
all the way.
in a now classic video of graduating ceremonies at Harvard universities in 1989, 25 graduates and faculties were asked a simple question: Why is it warm in the summer and cold in the winter? And astonishingly, 22 of them got it wrong.
These are Harvard graduates.
Most said that that is warmer in summer because the Earth is closer to the sun. And the correct answer is that the tilt of the Earth causes more sunlight to fall in the northern hemisphere in the summer than in the winter. The distance of the sun doesn't change, really.
We don't have an elliptical orbit.
No, it's what's slighted, but the distance of the sun from the Earth from the sun isn't really the defining factor of why
we don't do this.
It's the angle of the sun as it's going around.
Right.
But anyway, that's irrelevant on this point. The educators often cite this video as evidence of the abysmal condition of science education in this country. And more recent research is even more troubling. High school seniors in the United States were among the lowest scoring students from 41 nations that participated in the third International Mathematics and Science Study a few years ago. And there's been some recent improvements, but it's very slight. This is not a simple problem of kids not understanding basic science. Science literacy among young people who will be entering the workforce is in the intermediate future is so poor that it threatens the economic prosperity of the country. Science education also helps students avoid the pitfalls of pseudoscience. It constantly amazes me how many people pick up the most unscientific explanations for events that can be clearly explained by good science. Presidential Science Advisor Neil Lane has campaigned across the United States for better science education, warning repeatedly that science and technology are the drivers of the U.S. economy. And if we fail to improve science education, the country will simply not have the skilled workforce or the scientific breakthroughs it needs in the years ahead. Without a science-literate population, the outlook for a better world is not promising, says former astronaut George Nielsen, director of the American Association for the Advancement of Science's Project 2061, which is trying to address the issue.
Right.
It is not to say that all kids need to grow up to be scientists. We still need artists, politicians, and teachers, and all the other disciplines that make our culture work. But science plays a crucial role because what we learn today largely determines what we will become tomorrow. And the workplace of tomorrow will be far more complex than it is today, demanding workers with technical skills who can compete in a rapidly changing global economy. This seems a bit ironic that a nation that has led the way so much of the time towards higher levels of scientific and technological advancement should find itself threatened by science illiteracy. How did it come to this? A growing number of educators are reaching similar conclusions. We have tried to teach science in a once-over lightly technique. Give the kids a smattering of science, but don't ask them to dig too deeply. Forbid that they should become so enamored by any one field that they turn into nerds. A top educator, the top educator once told me that all kids begin their education as scientists, curious, investigative, eager to learn. And then we somehow along the way beat it out of them.
Yeah, our educational system in our country right now is not set up to teach kids how to think critically.
Right.
It's all about either rote memorization, just spitting out numbers and facts and figures. And another thing that our educational system has a disadvantage against is our mass media, who found that there is a great deal of money in the promulgation of superstition. The current issue of Skeptic, they have their little junior Skeptic section in the back. Yeah. Actually, that's every bit to me as fun to read as the main magazine, but they have a bit on how the mass media promotes superstition. And Michael Shermer, it was Shermer. Michael Shermer, who is the editor of Skeptic, and he is actually the host or co-host of a tremendous show that everyone needs to watch whenever it's on now. Jeff said that no, that's a call to action, can't do that. But it's a highly recommended program on the Fox Family Channel, ironically. Yeah. It's called Exploring the Unknown, which is, it used to be Tuesday nights at 9 regularly. Jeff says it's jumping around now, but it's a show that it's probably the only show on the air that takes a scientific, skeptical approach to claims of the paranormal.
Right.
And so he's co-host on that. It's interesting. It's been on the Fox Family Channel right before the 700 Club, which I love. But anyway, Michael Shermer in this issue of Skeptic talks about how he did an appearance on an Oprah Winfrey show, along with a very prominent TV psychic personality called James Van Praagh. Yeah, James Van Praagh. He's a popular TV psychic personality. And essentially what he did, Prague's routine, which is a process called cold reading, which is what psychics do. It's a means of sort of you interview your subject. You start by asking these broad, general questions,
and you narrow it down based on the answers that they
upon the
give you.
reactions that you get. I mean, it's like any good con man would do.
Right.
They feel you out.
Pay attention to what your mark is telling you.
Yeah, but there's
and work on that.
there's also some cheating involved, and in response to one. Prague singled someone out in Oprah's audience, and this woman, and she, was like, how did you know this? And Oprah turned to Michael Shermer and said, yeah, doctor, snort, snort. Hey, how do you think he knew that? And well, interestingly enough, Michael Shermer had a chance to talk to this very woman before the program, because she was either backstage in the green room or something, and he said, oh, well, this woman before the show told me that she rode over to the studio in the same limo with Von Prague and gave him this information on the ride over. Just told him this stuff that he supposedly psychically detected.
Right.
Well, what do you think happened? That got edited from the broadcast when Michael Shermer said that. So the viewer is left with the impression that these parents,
Von Prague had got it right. And a lot of what psychics do is determined by, it relies a lot on the people who are calling them, who have the belief already that these people can do psychic things.
Right. See, that's another thing about psychics is believers tend to be the ones who call them, not skeptics. And when you call them, and if you're a believer, and they get 10 things wrong, but then they suddenly get one thing right.
All the 10 things are forgotten.
Yeah, because of your predisposition to
so
believe.
You got it right on. You just are so psychic.
Let's, do you have
today's just this last little paragraph, which goes back to what you were saying about about how science is. Today's science textbooks and methods of instructions are far from helping, often actually impeding progress towards science literacy, adds Project 2061's Nelson. They emphasize the learning of answers more than the exploration of questions, memory at the expense of critical thought, bits and pieces of information instead of understanding and context, recitation over argument, and reading over than doing. And this is a major problem. We don't teach them how to do science. We just teach them, these are the scientists, this is what they found, memorize that.
Yeah.
And you
what year did Newton do his thing?
You bore them to death, and they never get anything really scientific about it.
And there's also, I think that once again, the mass media again is the culprit here. The stereotype of scientists being these nerdy guys with pocket protectors
nerdy guys
who can't get laid.
Big time glasses.
Nobody wants to be like that.
Pocket protectors, big thick glasses, inventing things that blow up in a laboratory.
To Goda on line 1. Let's see what she has to say. Hello? Hello?
It's a he.
He. I'm sorry, sir.
That's okay.
What's the stereotyping of slap our face? How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
What can we do for you?
The name right. It's Goda.
Goda.
Well, I guess
it got lost in the translation.
Yeah, and it might not have gotten spelled correctly on our board there. We're sorry, Goda. How can we help you?
I'm flipping through my Sunday channels, and very ironic, I come to your station, and that's there, and I'm thinking to myself, and all of a sudden I start hearing you talking about what Christians think, and I have to say that I am a believer. So, wouldn't you be more on the program and taking the time to spend here talking about what your program is, and not about what Christianity is?
Okay. Well, actually, yeah. What that's a lot of what atheism is about. What atheism is
other people's beliefs and not showing your own belief. Is that what you're about?
Let me clarify that for you, sir. Atheism has often been mischaracterized as a belief system. A more appropriate description of it would be that atheism is a response to religious belief systems. For example, you have. For example, a religion, and let's use Christianity as our example, makes the claim this deity exists. And atheism is a response to that in terms of saying, okay, well, in view of the fact that we don't consider there to be credible evidence for the support of that claim, we choose not to accept the validity of that claim.
That's fair enough that I understand that.
Okay,
so
and when you... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Let's set Christianity aside for a moment.
Okay.
And now let's take your belief on Buddhism.
Okay, well we don't have a belief on Buddhism. We don't use belief as our knowledge module.
We believe that Jesus Christ didn't exist.
Well, I do not think that there is sufficient evidence to support the existence of the character of Jesus Christ.
What do you think of Buddhism? As a form
I think the same thing. I don't think that there's enough evidence to suggest that there ever was a person named Buddha.
Well,
that the story is probably derivative from something else in Hinduism, and the same as Jesus is extracted from other myths that existed prior to.
Also, but just to get to the root of your question, we think in a free culture, sure, anyone who wants to adopt a belief system is free to do so. It's your life. You're free to make those choices. If you want to adopt Christianity, if you want to adopt Buddhism and take this whole peaceful Zen outlook. And Buddhism, I would have to say, of the world's religions, I would prefer to Christianity because it tends to be not, you know, it does not have kind of the checkered bloody history that Christianity does have. It doesn't tend to result in, either directly or indirectly, intolerance among its adherents, as Christianity does among some of its adherents. So if you have to be religious, I would say, you know, Buddhism is probably better for your mental health than a religious belief that teaches that if you don't follow that religious belief, you end up in, you know, the eternal lake of fire.
Well,
that's probably healthier.
You've said that several times in your show this morning about what you think about the little, you know, lake that everyone's going to go to, and there's going to be demons. Again, it comes back to what I initially said. Is here we are, a group of people that live in Austin that have a right to believe whatever they want to believe, if it be Christians or it be atheists or it be Buddhism, whatever the person chooses to believe. I just find it really ironic that you're promoting how someone else is wrong in their way of thinking. If we are a society that allows us to be free, we should embrace any
yes, but that doesn't but being in a free society does not preclude, you know, it doesn't mean you don't have a right to voice a criticism if you think a criticism is justified. And we, you know, it doesn't mean that, you know, once again, by virtue of living in a free society, we do have the right to say, if you think something is wrong or incorrect or inaccurate, you can say so.
Okay,
you know, there's nothing wrong with that.
Fair enough to say, if we live, and I'm going to just speak for a small community that exists here in the United States, being Austin, isn't it fair to say that if I am a Christian and you are an atheist, that we should be able to find a common barrier to live?
We should.
Well, sure, right. We should be able to get along,
but why should I be any wrong if my silly belief is that I'm going to be marched down to the lake and be pierced by the devil if I do something wrong? What's wrong with that belief, and why should that belief be something that somebody would make a characteristic as that person doesn't have any sense?
Well, you and I as neighbors could find common ground, but when you have people who are insistent upon taking this to the halls of government and imposing it through government institutions on everybody,
now those are
then we have a problem, and we have to step up and say, you know, well, politicians may be, but they don't have any more right to take their religion to the halls of Congress.
But that goes back to what you earlier on your program, where the guy kind of came on and he read the Constitution. Because our society has these people that want to call themselves politicians, allow themselves to do and try to mix religion and state, which we agreed many, many, many years ago before both of you or I were born, that shouldn't be done. But our society has fallen by the wayside and does allow religion to be pulled into the state democracy, which is a problem. But again, it comes back to why I'm watching this show. I'm flipping through. I'm thinking to myself, why would these guys be promoting what atheism is and not talking so much about Christianity and the little lake with the devils piercing people?
I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure I'm clear on. You're saying you don't understand why we're talking about, why we are critical of Christianity, or why we're talking about...
I think you should promote your thing instead of demeaning mine. You keep coming after my Christianity.
Well, see, I disagree with you on the fact that we're demeaning yours. I don't. That's a common. That's a common thing to just said.
Like there's going to be little guys stabbing you.
Well, sir, I mean, if
allow me to have a chance to respond.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
And see, a lot of times Christians take the Atheist Open criticism of the tenets of Christianity as a personal assault. And it's not directed as a personal assault. If I'm going to challenge the validity of what you're saying, I have to take into account what it says and my understanding of it. And to immediately launch into, well, you're criticizing my religion and you're demeaning me is a way to sidestep the issue, is a way to make me look like the bad guy. And when all I'm really doing is saying, you know, I disagree. I think that this is wrong. I think that your concept, the basis of your concept and your tenets of your religion are wrong. And if there's going to be people who are going to take this to government and say that our government is founded on these things that I think are wrong, when I know for sure it's not, and use that as a tool to get themselves into government and get their particular version passed over where everybody has to be subject to it, then I have I have to stand up and say, no, you can't do that.
Well, then it goes back to something I might agree with you on. There is a problem with politicians. Maybe you should put a coalition or a community together of people that don't think politicians are right. Because saying you're atheist, you should be talking about that. If you have a problem with government mixing with religion,
well, we are in fact doing that, sir. There have been.
Get your focus on that. Get your focus on. That's my problem. I think you get on TV. You have a right to talk about what your beliefs are. I'm not saying you're making fun of me. If that's the way you interpret my Christianity, more so be it. I have one last thing to say.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Please give me your definition of faith.
I would define faith as the assertion that a proposition is true, regardless of the lack or, in fact, perhaps even complete absence of evidence to support the proposition. That would be my definition of faith. And I don't feel that that is a valid cognitive procedure. It's not an accurate way by which one can obtain knowledge about the world in which you live. You know, to simply say, well, I don't want to steal Jeff's thunder because he wants to do this as an on-air demonstration of why faith doesn't work and reason does. But the point is to simply say, I believe in a thing, okay, and someone comes to you and says, okay, well, may I see your evidence for this thing? And then, not you specifically, but generically, you would, the generic you would say, well, I don't really have any evidence, I just believe in it because it makes me happy and it makes me feel good and this and that. Well, okay, that's maybe fine for a personal standpoint, but in the absence of such evidence, you're not really going to, convince a person of a more rational bent who requires evidence before he decides what he does or does not, what his ideas about life on this planet, are or aren't. And another thing is, if your belief, sometimes if your faith, if your belief system can be shown to be untrue, many cases a person will not be willing to surrender that belief system even if someone, let's say a person has a supernatural belief system and you say, well, here, I have this evidence and it shows that that particular belief system really isn't founded, it has no basis in fact, and the person will just say, I don't care, I will believe in it regardless. Well, then you have a whole new problem. Then that's a person who is just behaving irrationally.
Isn't there some scientific evidence that shows that everything can't be solved?
Well, that's kind of a contradiction in terms. It's more accurate to say science, hasn't perhaps found the answer to everything.
I mean, if earlier you guys were reading about the science and how we're failing in society of not being able to give enough information to our students in the system of science.
No, that's not what we were saying. What we were saying was, not that science is at fault, the educational system
isn't allowing kids to learn enough science.
Yeah, the school system isn't teaching science properly. It's not teaching kids to think critically.
If we use that for a baseline for a moment, and if we were to use some examples such as watering, freezing it, and understanding how that happens, right? There's science behind that. Somewhere in this, if I choose to be Christian and I say I have a faith, what you're telling me is, well, I can disprove you.
No. It works like this. The basic principle is extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. You'll hear that as kind of a scientific mantra. What that means is, there's a difference between ordinary claims and extraordinary claims, and we'd have other callers on the line.
I will tell you, thank you for the opportunity to allow me to visit.
Absolutely, and thank you for your call, and I am going to respond to what you just asked, but
God bless you. That isn't funny.
It is to an atheist.
It is. It's
who's doing it? There's nobody there.
But thank you for calling all the same,
may the
sir.
grace of God bless you.
Take care. All right. So
Santa bless you.
And 4. Okay. It's like this. For example, an ordinary claim would be, hey, Vic, I met an old friend of mine from college yesterday, and we went and had lunch. Okay. Now that's not
ordinary claim.
And now Vic is like, okay, fine. Vic does not need an enormous body of evidence, to
determine whether you went to
believe me when I say that to him, because going out and having lunch with a friend is a fairly common human activity.
If I turn around and say to you that I've got an invisible fire-breathing dragon locked in my garage.
Okay, now that's an extraordinary claim, and I'm going to need a little bit more than his word to go on for that.
Exactly.
Okay, but the point is, it's not. When let's use, well, the dragon claim is as interchangeable as the God claim, which is why a lot of atheists argue that. When you propose a claim of that nature, the burden of proof is entirely upon you to establish its validity. The non-believer or the atheist or the skeptic is under no obligation to do anything other than sit there and go, okay, I'm waiting. All right? And that's the same thing with religious claims. Now, if religion, now the thing is, skeptics not being the kinds of people to simply take things on faith and go, oh, dragon? Okay. All right. If the evidence that you present for the extraordinary claim that you're making does not back up the claim, the atheist is going to say, I'm sorry, that's not good enough.
Your claim.
I don't believe you. I don't hold this claim to be valid. Okay? And you can keep presenting evidence. Okay? And, you know, you'll either get something good, at which point the atheist might not be an atheist any longer, but that hasn't happened in the case of religion. Or, you know, what you'll usually find is, you know, and it's not closed-mindedness, okay?
Yeah,
skepticism, there is...
If anything, we are the most open-minded people there are, because I've read books regarding several different religions in a period of my late teens where I was questioning whether I didn't believe or not. And the more I read about religion, the more off it became, and the more I was convinced that I was right to begin with.
All right. Well, it boils down to skepticism is the most appropriate form of open-mindedness, because what you're saying is, okay, I'm listening to the claim you're making, and based upon a careful examination of the evidence that you provide me, I will determine whether or not I choose to think that this claim is valid or invalid. Okay? There are a lot of believers, a lot of people in the religious community or the supernaturalist, you know, people of a supernatural bent, confuse open-mindedness with just plain gullibility.
Right. Okay.
They are two different things, you know. And I read an editorial about a week or so ago in the Statesman, and it wasn't openly atheistic, but the woman who, I don't remember her name, but it had a refreshingly skeptical bent, which I appreciated seeing in a daily paper. But she said, but the memorable quote from the editorial was, you know, sometimes open-mindedness can lead to empty-mindedness. You know, if you're so open to just anything anybody says, then what you have is just these wacky beliefs floating around in your mind, and you have no focus in your life. Okay. Thank you for hanging on, callers, and we're getting to you now, starting with Don on line 3. Good morning, Don.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
Good.
How can we help you today?
Oh, you know, last week I was talking with some people that are very religious, and they was talking about their soul. And I said, I don't believe in this. And they said, well, you should. And I said, well, why should I? And they said, well, when you die, your body loses weight at the instant that you die, and so your soul leaves your body. That's why you don't.
I think I've actually heard of this claim.
Yeah, I've heard that one before,
wasn't it something to the line along the lines of they quote something that says at the moment of death your body loses like a slight percentage of an ounce,
decimal little number, and so then they couldn't reproduce it. They couldn't replicate it. They couldn't do it twice.
See now, folks, that's not evidence. Okay.
And first, I said I thought the soul wasn't supposed to weigh anything. I thought it was just supposed to disappear.
Yeah, if it weighed something, it would be a material object.
Exactly.
Right, and that's exactly what I said. And they said, well, we got proof of that. And I said, who? And they was talking about some religious people that said that they weighed a body at the time that the person died, that the weight left the body. And I said, well, show it to me in black and white. No one can show it to me in black and white.
That's because it doesn't exist in black and white. It's largely it's going up there in the mythological section.
Yeah, well,
see, now, I'm sorry.
Like religion, you know, anything fantasized about, you know.
Now this, folks, is a perfect example of what's either known as pseudoscience or just plain bad science.
Yeah.
There's a difference between how science works and how pseudoscience works. Science is you start with a proposition or a theory, okay, and then you say to yourself, okay, I am now going to look for evidence to show, not to prove the theory, but to disprove the theory, okay? And if you cannot find a sufficient amount of evidence to say, no, this theory doesn't hold up, okay, then you can begin to accept the theory, and then the theory becomes a hypothesis, I believe. Is that,
a hypothesis is the first thing. That's the question.
Hypothesis?
This is
Okay.
a hypothesis.
I'm sorry, maybe my terminology is getting screwed
is a
up.
possible answer to the question given a set of facts.
Yeah.
When you've tested this hypothesis to see if it's going to stand up to scrutiny, then it's reliable and it keeps coming back with the right answers, then you get into what's a theory.
Yeah, okay. The hypothesis.
And a theory is just a
next.
cohesive explanation of given facts.
And then at that point, what you have is what's known as peer review, where other people in the
Right.
scientific discipline that you're practicing will then now attempt to do similar experiments to see if they can
To
get the
replicate
results
it.
you got and what have you want. Okay, now that's how science works. How pseudoscience works, or bad science, is, the person starts with the conclusion.
Right.
Okay. The soul exists. That's their conclusion. And then all they do is they look for whatever sort of cockamamie thing that they can point to and say, there's something. And they will summarily ignore anything else. You might
if
say,
they run 10 experiments and 9 of them fail, the one that actually got what they were looking for, that's the one they'll point to and say, yep, there it is, we got it, scientific proof.
Whereas proper science would look at the 9 that failed and say, we have
yeah,
9
it's a
out
little
of 10,
unreliable.
9 out of 10 bad, so let's chuck this theory.
Well, he told me, this certain person told me that when I die that I will get God because, and I said, why would I get God then when I'm dying, when I don't believe in him now? He said, because he'll tell you. And I said, he's going to demand, is this correct, that I like him? And he said, yes. And he said, if not, you'll go to hell. And he said, and you know what hell will do? And I said, no, because I don't believe in hell either. And he just couldn't believe this.
See, here's the thing. Okay, he doesn't understand. The guy who's talking to you doesn't understand that the conversation he's having with you is essentially meaningless to you because he is coming from a presupposition that there is a God, which is not a fact that has been established. So he could just as easily be saying the golden magical blue pixie in the sky. Well, that's golden blue.
Golden
in the sky will do this, or the unicorn living in my backyard will do this when you die. It's those statements have no more meaning than for him to say God will do this certain thing when you die. Prove or establish that your God exists first. Then you can begin to have a meaningful discussion with an unbeliever as to what your God will or will not do to you.
He said, good example. He said, how about the ice cream on the street in Houston in front of that apartment and God's picture in the tree? And I said, you can see anything. You can look up the clouds and make anything you want to.
Right.
And I said,
wait, go back to the ice cream. I don't know about this.
Oh, there was a Jesus in an ice cream stand.
What it fell in front of this apartment building. Someone dropped an ice cream cone. And
that's called imagination, folks, is what that is.
And he saw Jesus in the ice cream.
No, it was a thing. Someone saw it, got on the news. Like anytime you see, there was,
the trees in Lockhart.
There's the Virgin Mary in the office building in Florida, and the windows, and there's usually like.
And he said that Jesus was in there, and it was in front of this apartment building, and they covered it up with plastic so that you could see it, and maintain it, and they're not going to have them dig up the sidewalk or anything, Right. And I said, "Are you out of your ever?"
It's this whole thing. They're rooting their entire spiel in presuppositions that things are true that haven't been established as true. And furthermore, what I also like to say and once again, we're not ganging up on all Christians, okay? So you sensitive, nice Christians out there, don't take this personally. But when a Christian says to me, God loves you and he wants you to love him,
well, why don't you come ask me?
Well, no, my response to that is, if that's what he wants, why does he then feel it's necessary to threaten me with eternal torture if I choose that I don't want to love him or worship him?
Well,
that's the love equivalent of the mafia.
Choosing not to love him gives the kind of credibility that it actually exists.
Well, but even beyond that, It's like the abusive husband who says, "Honey, I love you.
I have to smack you around a little bit."
And if you ever leave me, I'll kill you. It's like,
exactly.
Oh well, gee, that's a nice.
Don, I don't want to cut you off here, but we got like 12 minutes, and we got 3 other callers to go to.
We have a couple other callers.
I'll see you down to the shop.
All right, thanks for calling, Don.
Yeah.
Okay, and now we are going to Tamara. Thank you for waiting, Tamara, and you're live on the. Well, no, she's not. Tamara, you're live on the air.
Oh, well, good. Is it afternoon yet?
Not yet.
Thanks for waiting. We've just had a bunch of callers, and what can we do for you this morning?
Well, a couple of things. I was just going to comment on a couple of things that were said earlier. One thing is I was raised I'm an atheist, but I was raised Hellfire and Brimstone Baptist.
Right.
So, you know, I have a firm idea of the belief system. But what I found is when I was growing up is that science was not considered in my household to be a very important topic of discussion.
Yeah.
And the change in our education system, I mean, at one time science was a very important subject. I don't think it is any longer because you have too many individuals in the religious community who have gotten into school boards and trying to, you know,
water it down
because, you know, and this is something I've seen and something I believe is that, you know, people who are not critical thinkers, who are gullible, are easier to control.
Well, I think that is a lot of what the organization of religion is about. It's about power and control and getting people into pews and getting them to put their money in the plates. But
and if you can get them young enough, you know.
Yeah,
an example of that was last week where the guy called in and said it went right straight past the parent, went straight for the child.
I'm going to save you. Let's get together and talk. And
I want to give you an opportunity to be saved, talking directly to the child while his mother's sitting right there.
Yeah, and how would he like it if, well, not even us, Keith, but what if like a Satanist approached his child, ignored his wishes and said, I'm going to give this boy a chance to serve my dark master? Okay, he'd probably object to that, but when they do it, it's not objectionable.
It's okay,
you know, or not even a Satanist, just a member of any other religion.
A Wiccan or a Muslim or a Scientologist.
Or an atheist, simply coming to their child and saying supernaturalism is done. But yeah, you know, we're agreeing with you, Tamara, that, and the news article that that Vic just wrote. Also, I think what you have in our culture now is, interestingly, there was a news report that we did, I think a couple of weeks ago, where the general population, I think it was determined that, okay, the teaching of evolution in public schools has like 80-some-odd% public support.
Right.
But at the same time, also, the teaching of like creationism as kind of like the other alternative also has a lot of support. And this editorialist in the Statesman a few last week sometime that I was telling you about was talking about this. There seems to be an attitude in our culture right now of what this editorialist called whateverism, which is this idea that, okay, it's let's all get along, but it's taken to an extreme of where, you know, not to say, well, no, people don't have a right to, you know, believe in what they want to believe in, but taking it out of the personal arena and sort of into the public arena where, you know, it suddenly becomes okay to put a religious belief system into a science class and say that it's an alternative science. Whereas, you know, and it's, you know, okay, I take the view, well, okay, if a high school wants to offer, say, a course in comparative religions as an elective, that would be an appropriate school environment to talk about Christian beliefs, Muslim beliefs, Judaism, Hinduism,
Zoroastrianism,
go down the list.
Buddhism,
Indians, the whole, any of them.
But you know, but then to take a particular religious creation story and introduce it into biology class as an alternative for what is established as being the scientific the principle underlying that whole science.
Right.
You know, Russell Glasser, when he was a guest on the show, made the point that to people the people in the religious community who don't really understand atheism seem to think that it's this big controversial scientific theory, whereas if you actually talk to some people who make their living and as scientists, it's just it's beyond dispute. Evolution is beyond dispute. What did I just say?
Atheism.
Oh, no. It's my first day with my new tongue, folks.
Even evolution is not beyond dispute because
well, no, the process it's an ongoing process. The fact that
we evolved from lower forms of life is a given.
The genetic basis that evolution happens where you have genes passing on and over generations, that aspect of, remember now, evolutionary science has expanded far beyond what Darwin's original writings were.
Right.
But the genetic underlying basis of it is beyond dispute, and now what they're just ironing out, they're studying more, they're ironing out the details. That's what I meant by that. Right. So I don't mean to give any, I'm sorry if I gave anyone the wrong impression there.
But we are down to like
you're down to,
about
4 minutes. So,
but you know, to introduce.
So we have two other callers that I'd like to see them get on.
Come out to the bagel shop if you like. It's
I would love to, but I'm at work right now.
Okay, well, that's an open invitation any Sunday.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you for calling, Tamara, and call back on the show sometime.
Okay.
You know, it makes no more sense than to introduce flat Earth theory in geology class as an alternative to the idea.
Exactly, that's just loony.
You know, and so it's...
Okay, we're going to go to Daphne on line 1.
Daphne, you're going to be probably our final caller for the day. So.
Well, we'll try to get to Jimmy.
Well, we'll try to get to you, Jimmy. Just hang on.
Daphne, try to make your point quickly.
Daphne?
Okay, I have 3 questions.
Hi. Okay.
Okay. What is your belief in Earth and man and woman, and how did the creation of man and woman take place?
You mean how did we get here to begin with?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, the prevailing scientific evidence right now is that all organic life on this planet began in the oceans as single-celled organisms, and over a period of eons, those organisms, those simple life forms, developed into more and more complex life forms until we have ended up where we are today, and we are still evolving. You know, if life still exists on the planet Earth 3 million years from now,
it'll be different.
It will be different than who we are today. There was no single first man and single first woman who got the whole genetic ball of wax rolling. Okay, that is what the prevailing evidence shows.
Okay, and what about when things are not going right in your life, like you're sad or something go wrong? What do you do?
That's an emotional question. Okay, everybody gets the blues. Everybody gets down in the dumps, has bad days. Things don't go right. You make plans, they go haywire. You try to assess the situation, see what's wrong, what's not going right with what you're doing, and
do your best to get out of it,
and do things that'll correct the problems that you're dealing with.
Life goes on, and you're responsible for your own happiness. And so, if
don't let a little bad day or some bluesy stuff really spoil your whole life.
If you're in a problem, figure out what to do to make yourself better. If you're unhappy, figure out what it is that you aren't doing to make yourself to be happy, and pursue that line of living as opposed to another line of living, which is obviously not working for you.
Okay, so you can get to your other caller. Do y'all believe in good and bad luck?
No.
Well, hang on a second.
Good and bad luck.
Oh, good and bad luck? No. My view on luck is that it is simply the result of ability,
circumstances.
It's ability. Mixed with opportunity.
If
you have the skill to do something, and then the opportunity comes along for you to exercise that skill and enjoy success in life, well, that's really what luck is.
Okay.
And you get through life through hard work and waking up every day with a smile on your face, and how am I going to make this a good day?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for calling, Tamara. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
That was Daphne.
Daphne. Oh, it's my first day with my new brain. Okay, and we can talk to Jimmy in our last 2.5 minutes, so let's do that.
Make your point quickly, Jimmy.
Jimmy?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi, you're feeding back a little bit, and I don't know if that's your fault or...
Yeah, it's...
yeah,
hello? Okay, we're
How's
fixed.
that?
Okay, hi.
Yeah.
What can we do for you, sir?
Yeah, I know I only got a couple of minutes here, but I just want to say that I'm going to borrow a little line from Star Wars, from Darth Vader. May the Force be with you. Okay? We are a force. We are an electrical, energetic force, and this force lives within the body. And what makes us talk, think, and do all this stuff is who we really are. And when it's all said and done, we're just a pipe to bring in food in one end and bring it out the other.
Okay.
Well,
let me...
But the
Go ahead,
thing
Vic.
that makes us, the energy that sustains us, will always be living forever. And it's never born, and it never dies. It's just there.
And you have evidence for that?
You sound like you're confusing a couple of concepts. There's the concept that energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's just transferred from one form to another.
There you go.
The process,
and we're going to respond.
Energy,
thank you for your call,
thanks
Jimmy.
for calling, Jimmy. The energy that can be measured coming from a human body is the product of the biochemical machine that I'm still here, folks.
Yeah, well, we're on
the biochemical machine known as the human body, which produces electrochemical
Reactions?
Reactions to
It's electrochemical activity in your brain is what forms your consciousness.
Yes.
And
the consciousness is a biological process. When the biology of your body stops functioning, the process stops functioning with it.
Ray, do we have love? Let's give our love. Okay. Well, we don't have our love rings just yet, but
there we are.
Next week, Jeff will be back.
We don't hate you. We just think you're wrong. That's all there is to it.
Thanks for watching.
Let's suck it back in.
Well, there's our love, and it's going out to you. Tune in next week. Jeff D will be back. Next week is also our lecture series, and
we're going to Bagel Shop.
Bagel Shop at 10:30. Thanks, Austin. We love you.
And we're